Yes, today we are ranking djent bands, and just putting it out there, I do not consider this to be a genre. It's more of just like an approach to guitar, thus the diversity of some of the bands on this list. And let's not bury the lead, we're gonna jump right into it with Meshuggah. So these Swedish kind of progenitors of the entire genre, they have to go to perfection. like why even waste time talking about this? They really kind of set the blueprint for this whole thing, for better or worse, and they continue to put out amazing albums to this day. They really don't have an album I dislike. I know I like to kind of dunk on Catch 33, but it's really just kind of for the memes, and because I know people get mad about it. I don't hate that album. It's my least favorite, but yeah, everything they've put out I've enjoyed, and I have loved them since high school. So yeah, they belong up there. Also, note that my thoughts on the bands on this list as a whole are going to be particular fluid, as I have spent more time with some of them than others. So yeah, I mean, it's all subjective anyways. Some of these may move around in the future, but next up, let's throw a newer one on the board here with Darko. One of my favorite kind of deathcore projects right now, because I think they have sort of a unique take on it with the more kind of like just fast-paced, djenty, rhythmic sound, the electronic elements, and just the gnarly vocals. Just all comes together so perfectly. Didn't love the latest album, which brings them down a little bit because, I mean, they only have, 3 full lengths now, but then a whole bunch of like EPs and stuff as well. But very promising group. I'm always excited to see what they put out. I'm going to put them at amazing. Next, let's go with Northlane. These guys have their moments, but of everything on this list, I feel like this is kind of the most octane core of them all, so it just comes off as very generic. I don't think anything on this list is like truly bad, but I have not really enjoyed much that I've heard from them. Again, maybe if I spend more time, I'll enjoy them more, but at this point, there isn't even really a single song I can point to that I was like, oh yeah, that's a kick-ass single. So they are going to kind of setting the tone for what kind of spectrum we're going to have here. But let's move from there to textures. I was really sad when this band called it quits because I feel like they really went out on top with Phenotype. Really great kind of, if you like stuff like Periphery, then Textures is right up there as well. They don't have too many albums, which is why I couldn't feel like I had to put them all the way at the top, but really enjoy them. If you haven't listened to them, highly recommend it. They are going to fantastic. Next up, let's go with Vildhjarta. Another Swedish band here, and more accurately described as Thal for their like really low down tune sound. And it is kind of an interesting take. When they kind of first hit the scene, I remember enjoying them, but then they kind of disappeared for a while and then they came back. They have a very strong, rabid fan base, but to be fully honest, I've just never been like that down with them. They have certain songs I enjoy, but especially like the most recent album, I just find so repetitive. Also, they have so much lore, and I find the lore to be kind of more interesting in terms of like the album concepts than the music itself. So this one's going to be kind of a hot take. I'm sure some people are going to be mad about this one. I would put them at good. Again, I enjoy them, but I rarely like by choice go back to them because I just think they're kind of more interesting songwriters in this genre. Next, let's go with Monuments. Now, I'm still kind of early in kind of like my exploration of Monuments as well, but this is a band where I've sort of enjoyed most of what I've heard so far. I don't think they're the best thing or the worst thing, but I'd sort of describe them as like Veil of Maya meets Dance Gavin Dance, especially with that like clean singing. It's very catchy, I think. Great vocals on these, great instrumentation, good kind of dynamics to the music, and I'm looking forward to kind of diving into them more, but as of where I'm at with them right now, I would put them at great tier. Moving along with another kind of relatively newer band, let's go with Loathe. awesome UK band. This was not one that y'all kind of put on the list when I said which bands should we include in this. By the way, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but we got 32 bands here. I feel like that's more than enough. They mix like that really heavy djent sound with Deftones, and that is just such a cool and unique fusion. They don't have too many albums yet. They only really have like, I think 2 full-length albums and then the like instrumental like drone kind of album. And they haven't put out anything since then. I'm hoping they put out something new, maybe even this year in like their full-on style. But so good, so impressive, like definitely up-and-comers band to watch. I'm going to put them at amazing. Another potential hot take here, we have Humanity's Last Breath. I feel like these guys are kind of like the darling of the like djent deathcore scene right now. Really slow, heavy stuff, and it can be really good. Like I enjoy them. I particularly think the album Vildhjarta is their best so far, but I just think that it gets old really fast for me. Each song kind of sounds very similar, and similar issues that I have with Vildhjarta, not quite to the same extent, but yeah, for that reason, I'm putting them at good tier. I'm always rooting for them, and I'm always kind of interested when they drop new stuff, but I find myself in that same zone most times. Moving on, we have Within the Ruins. Absolutely love this band. I discovered them initially on like a whim. I was at the mall and it was Elite was in the like case of albums you could kind of sample at the time, and so I checked it out and was like, whoa, this is a unique take on djent. As far as things go with like bands that are doing this right now, I honestly think that they kind of do it the best. They definitely have their specific blueprint to how they play the guitars, but holy cow, like it's just the melodies are so hooky and there are so many great vocal lines too. I think they have one of the best guitar players in the entire genre right now, Joe Kochi, who I actually interviewed at one point. Really cool dude. So yeah, they are going to perfection. Again, underrated. Please listen to Within the Ruins. Do it! All right, another big one here. Let's talk about Spiritbox. By the way, I'm loving the memes from the Grammys where they they thought she was Poppy and she just went with it.
I am Poppy, and I am really happy to be here, nominated with Knocked Loose. I really hope we win.
Well, what a great moment for metal music that is. But anyways, I really enjoy these guys. I feel like some people think I don't like them because I was kind of hard in my album review, but I still gave it like a 8 out of 10 or something like that. But I just have criticisms, and I think they're valid. I think that Eternal Blue is a good album, but it was highly overrated that year. People talked like it was like the best thing ever, and I was like, no, there are some amazing songs on here, but as a whole, I thought there was some filler, some kind of bland parts. I revisited it recently, still felt the same way. Really rooting for them though. Like the singles for the new album sound really promising. I think all their EPs have been really strong. I really like their earlier stuff even before Eternal Blue, and so I see them probably rising up on this list. For now, I would put them at great just because they only have one LP. And kind of mixed results in my opinion, but Courtney is queen, so we'll see what happens as this new album drops and beyond. Let's talk about Veil of Maya. I kind of jokingly call this band like we have Periphery at home, but that's not fair really, because I'd say that they're just about as good as Periphery. Very similar taste, at least right now, in terms of it, mixing the very melodic soaring choruses with the really heavy verses, but you go back to their earlier stuff too, and it's just like pure deathcore and more kind of mathy energy, but I enjoy all the albums. This was a fun discography to go through when I ranked everything. Didn't like the newest album. That was probably my least favorite overall. It wasn't bad, and it had some really good tracks on it, but I was kind of disappointed they didn't do the tracks they did with Spencer from Periphery. Still don't know what happened there, but in any case, I'm going to put them at fantastic. I do think they're one of the better bands in the genre overall. And then let's talk about Skyharbor. I was not as familiar with these guys. I've heard their name in passing, but I hadn't given them much of a shot. I checked out some of their music, and again, I need to be fair, to listen to more to like really form a full opinion, but I wasn't particularly impressed with what I heard. I just wasn't really feeling it. I think a lot of the softer moments were kind of boring for me, and the heavier ones felt like sort of lesser versions of bands I like more on this list. So do with that what you will. I'm going to put them at okay at this point. But again, that could change in the future. Ooh, let's talk about Sikth. So this UK band, if they had just come out a couple years later, I feel like they would have been one of the biggest things out there. But as it stands, a lot of people still don't even know who they are. Incredibly underrated. They came out before Periphery, basically with Periphery's sound, and then with 2 vocalists too. And Mikey in particular has like a lot of weird stuff he does with his voice. I've heard him compared to like Jonathan Davis from Korn at times. I got into them hearing the song Bland Street Bloom, which please check out that track first. Like I feel like that'll be a deciding factor whether you like them or not, but that is one of their best tracks. Death of a Dead Day is a really amazing album, but they have other really good ones too. And then they made a comeback, but still didn't really make a splash. And then they've kind of disappeared again. They lost one of their vocalists and recruited a new one. I don't really know what's going on with them now. I hope they're still making music. Still, they linger in obscurity, and it just ain't fair because they are so good. Let's go with Erra. Another one some people might be mad at. I give the fan base here credit because some of these fan bases are just so rabid and they're just like, everything they put out is the best album ever. And I saw with the new album they put out last year, even the fans were kind of like, yeah, this is not very good. And I appreciate that. I think bands need that. They need fans that are not just going to be yes men that can point out when something's not that great. And I agree, that album's not that great. But I'd also say like I think they're good, but they're another one of those bands where like everyone's like, oh, Erra is so amazing. And then I listen to them and I'm like, oh, it's fine. So it just feels kind of overrated to me. Again, could spend more time with them. I've spent a decent amount of time with them at this point so far though, but I'm going to put them at good. I know a lot of people would put them at higher, but hey, them's the breaks. Another kind of underrated, lesser known band, we have Unprocessed. This is a German band, and I have covered a few of their albums at this point, maybe even most of their albums. I'd say at least 3. And they have, how many right now? I want to say they have like 5 albums or something like that. The listens can be a little bit uneven, I would say. I'm not sure they have an album out right now where I love like every single track, but the highs are so high, and even the like kind of lows are just sort of like still good, still enjoyable. So I'm going to put them at great, and they're another band I would say to watch and to start recommending to more people, because I feel like if they got more traction, that would be awesome, and they deserve it. I think they are really impressive performers. They have a handle on the kind of jazzier side of the genre as well, and just really some really impressive compositions and really kind of complex stuff that they put out there as well, and great vocals. We also have Volumes. Another one on this list that is fine, but I find to be kind of generic. I don't hear a whole lot of vision in their sound. There's some really solid moments, and again, to their credit, like I haven't spent a ton of time with them, but I have yet to hear something that I like truly loved, so they're also going to okay tier. Ooh, let's throw on Car Bomb. Now, these guys are incredible. Just absolutely insane stuff, and super heavy, super low end, like about as djenty as you can get, and then also throwing in like really crazy mathcore elements and jumping around with the time signatures, getting wild with the vocals. They also are big fans of My Bloody Valentine. I interviewed the guitarist at one point, and he said like that's one of his main inspirations, which is not something that would necessarily be immediately apparent, but as you get into the later stuff, you pick up on that a lot more, and they throw in more of those influences. I didn't love the last album as much, but it's still like really unique. But check out all their stuff if you have not gotten on the Car Bomb train. I'm putting them at fantastic. So let's talk about Animals as Leaders. Very, very strong band with so many amazing performances. I'd say that they're a lot more than DJENT, to the point where I like barely even wanted to include them here. But yeah, it's so good, especially for an instrumental band. I don't listen to a ton of instrumental music, but they're definitely one of the better ones out there. I have tier listed their discography as well and enjoyed every single album. I just don't go back to them for re-listens as often, so for that reason I put them at amazing. Well, let's go with Currents. So I didn't really get into these guys until the latest album, and I really did enjoy that album. It just had a very kind of 2000s feel to it, and I pretty much enjoyed every song. It was a really tight album. It was only like 30 minutes long, and it was really great. Didn't like what I heard from some of the other albums, but again, I haven't fully dived into them. I saw some like audience ratings on Metal Storm for these guys, and they were pretty low. So I don't know what that's all about. I didn't hear anything that I like hated, but if they continue on with the sound that they had on the last album, then I'm probably going to keep getting into them. I think they tap into some elements that sort of got me into metalcore to begin with, but for now, I am going to put them at good tier. Next up, I'm going to go with Born of Osiris. Another big band to the genre, especially on the deathcore side of things, at least when they started. Now they've swung in kind of like a more full-on metalcore direction. Honestly, their early stuff is more like progressive death metal. And then they've sort of segued through things from there. I really love The Discovery. That is my favorite album from them. It's one of my favorite albums in the entire style, and I've really liked all their stuff. I know some people kind of felt like they've fallen off with their latest albums, and yeah, you know, the newest one was maybe like not as strong, but I still enjoyed it a lot, and there were a lot of tracks on there that I really got down with, and I kind of appreciate that they're covering a wide variety of different sounds over their career, from the super heavy death metal-y stuff to the more kind of melodic, uplifting metalcore sounding style, and so I am putting them at fantastic. Let's talk about Polyphia. I feel like this band I've known mostly as sort of like a meme most of my time, and just didn't listen to them much almost because of that, which is sort of unfair, because as much as I hear them sort of made a joke of, they're very talented, impressive musicians. Again, this is a band I haven't checked out as much, but everything I checked out, I was like, oh wow, like there's a lot of creativity, a lot of dynamics, a lot of, again, those jazz elements. And unlike Rings of Saturn, which I'm not really a fan of at all, it didn't feel like overly wanky to me. It just felt like they really enjoyed writing those songs. So I'm going to put them at great tier. Okay, we got to talk about Architects. Now, if I made this list around the time that Holy Hell came out, these guys would be at perfection, because I love basically every album through Holy Hell, and they're all kind of different from the earlier stuff, just that more kind of classic 2000s metalcore sound, to the more like pure genty and getting a little bit more progressive and melodic with the later stuff. They even have an album kind of in the middle that's almost like pop punky in places. I enjoy it all, and they have some real slappers. They are another kind of foundational band for this movement, and so that's why you hear a lot of people call certain bands like Architects Core, basically, because there's a lot of people copying their style. And Lost Together, Lost Forever, I always forget which order that title goes in, but that's my personal favorite from them. Now, after Holy Hell, they lose me a lot, unfortunately, and they have, like, I would say they've fallen off quite a bit since then. I haven't like hated this stuff, but like it's been a pretty sad downfall. The new singles sound promising, but I've said that before in some cases, so we'll just have to see. I'm always rooting for these bands. Like, I don't like seeing bands like fail, so I don't want that. But I'm still going to put them at amazing, because I think they're really important. But again, a couple albums back, they would have been much higher. Let's go with After the Burial. Sick band. Another one that sadly lost one of their guitar players too. Too many guitar players gone way too soon. In the metalcore scene especially. But anyways, got into these guys back in maybe like 2012-ish, I want to say, something around there, and have loved them ever since. Another band I love every single album. Everything's got something a little bit different to offer, but they also definitely have their very kind of core sound. Very impressive guitar work, and they also write really strong songs, which is what kind of caused me to latch onto them. Because again, I think some of the bands I don't like as much in this genre, that's the issue, where everything just is sort of like relying on the binary riffs, and there's just not a lot of interesting songwriting going on. Not the case with these guys. I think they write really engaging, catchy, and often very heavy stuff, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from them in the future. I'm still putting them at perfection, personally. All right, let's talk about Sleep Token.
No, sir, I don't like it.
Now this one, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know how I feel about Sleep Token. I think they're severely overrated and kind of overwrought, very cringy, corny stuff. I think the whole kind of like lore and concept behind it is very sort of TikTok and Reddit energy, and I'm just not into that. And I'm not that into the music too. Like, I know some people really like rave about all the stylistic mixing that they do, which normally, like I've said for some other bands on here, is something I really enjoy. It's just that I don't think that they do it very well. I think everything is mashed very clumsily together. There's not a lot of flow to it. It's confusing in a bad way, I would say. So I'm putting them at okay. I'm not a big fan of the clean vocals with that kind of like Hozier sort of sound. It's just not really for me. All right, let's go with Tesseract. I'd say this is another pretty beloved band in the genre, like up there with the likes of Veil of Maya. I think they're very talented, but I often find them quite boring too, so it's really hit and miss for me. Certain songs really enjoy, other tracks kind of a snore. Haven't really found an album yet that I really enjoyed start to finish, but I haven't, again, spent as much time with these guys either. I appreciate their kind of more progressive and dynamic approach, but a little middle of the road for me, so I'm going to put them at great tier. This is going to be maybe another hot take. We got the Contortionist. For many, many years, I've seen people raise this name up, and I think they're like a go-to for plenty of people, but I have not been super impressed. I think especially the newer stuff with all this like softer music is dull. Very, very boring. I did not enjoy what I was hearing from the newer stuff. The older stuff is decent, but even that was kind of like, oh yeah, it's good, but there's stuff I like better. So at this point, they go at okay for me. Again, that could change, but yeah, I'll be interested to see in the comments if you think that's like a particularly bad take. But hey, these are just my opinions at this point in time. Let's talk about Frontierer. Absolutely sick Scottish band. Mathcore kids love Frontierer. Just pure energy, pure chaos, dissonance, intensity. Put them right alongside Car Bomb. They have kind of a different style. I'd say Frontier is a little bit more kind of like consistent in what they put out, whereas Car Bomb experiments a bit more. But just the sheer amount of noise and craziness that comes out of this group never ceases to amaze me. And I hear their live shows are insane. So maybe one day I'll get to experience that. But yeah, if you haven't listened to Frontier, definitely check them out. Let's talk about Jinjer. I still see a lot of hate for this band. It's like I see it from both sides. I see some people absolutely hate this band, and I feel like they hate the fans more than they actually hate the band. And then that brings me to the other side, where the people who like ride or die for this band are super cringe, super gross in how they talk about Tatiana. But I think they're really incredible. Like, Tatiana is a really strong vocalist. I've criticized at times, like, I think sometimes the writing of her vocal melodies can be a little messy, but for the most part, I think she has got a great voice. I think Home Back is like a real testament to the entire band as performers. I think Vlad could go toe-to-toe with most drummers out there. And just across the board, really impressive band that I think gets unfairly maligned. Maybe that's part of, for a long time, I refused to listen to them because I just thought Jinjer was like the dumbest sounding band name too. And I still stand by, I don't really like that name, but I think they're really good. I think the new album is great. And I think if you haven't like given them an actual fair shake, then you should, but they are going to amazing for me. Invent Animate. I enjoyed the latest album quite a bit. I've sampled some of the stuff before them. I feel like I need to listen to a lot more of them as well to like really form a solid opinion. But overall right now I'm feeling kind of good tier with potential to rise. I do feel like I enjoyed the diversity and dynamics of their music more than some of the other bands on this tier. So that's one that probably will rise up in the future. A lot of people were shouting out VOLA. Very creative band from Denmark. I'd say they kind of like transcend the DJENT label, like some other bands I've mentioned here, in that they do a lot of stuff. Some of it I like a lot, some of it I don't. Again, they're another band where I've heard certain songs and I'm like, whoa, that's really cool and interesting. And then others where I'm like, I don't know about this one so much. The vocals I'm on the fence about at times. So I still think they're like inventive enough that I put them at great tier, but they haven't consistently wowed me enough that I'd want to put them higher. But I see some people absolutely adore this band. Another old school pick here. We got Fear Factory. I was on the fence of even including these guys because I don't even like think of them in the same way as any other band on this list. But I mean, as far as that guitar tone goes on a lot of the songs, especially some of the newer stuff, but even going back to the early stuff, like they are one of the progenitors of this sound as well overall, just bringing more of like an industrial flavor to it and the sci-fi elements. I love the first like 4 or so albums. Then they kind of fall off for me a bit. But then they've kind of been like clawing their way back with some of the later. I actually really enjoyed the new album. That was a very divisive album. People seem to either love it or hate it. I was on the more kind of love it side. I'm interested to see what they do with the new vocalist now. I think they're good enough and important enough that I would put them at amazing. But I wouldn't put them higher because, again, I think they've got quite a few duds in their discography as well. And then ending it on Periphery. I mean, another band where there's not an album I dislike or even think is kind of mid. I know initially when the two-parter, I'm blanking on the name right now, I initially didn't like that when it came out, but now I really enjoy it. And yeah, I'd give like every single of their albums like an 8 out of 10 or higher. Strong discography, probably one of my most re-listened bands. I can still remember the moment that I heard Icarus Lives for the very first time at work. It came up on like my Facebook feed, I want to say. Somebody posted it, and I was off to the races from there. Incredible band, impressive players. I know it's another one where like people like to hate on them, especially Spencer, but I think all around it's like a full package thing. I know Spencer's vocals are not for everyone, and that's fine. I totally understand why, but I love them, and we'll continue to listen to them for many, many years. They are also going to perfection. Y'all check out this playlist for more metalcore rankings, or this for your personal YouTube recommendation, but that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.